What's up, guys? We're back with another Super 7 Ultimates review, jumping headfirst into a new wave of ThunderCats. We're starting with a villain in Wave 4. So we're taking a look today at Monkian, and I'm pretty excited about this guy for one big reason. He completes a team. He finishes off our trio of core mutants. So Jackalman, Slide, and now Monkian. So that's kind of cool. It's showing us that things are going in the right direction. He, of course, comes in the standard Ultimate style packaging, so he gets the slipcover treatment. You get the foil embossed Mum-Ra logo there on the front with the twin snakes. Pop this guy off, and we've got Monkian in there in all of his glory in that big old window. ThunderCats logo down there on the bottom, and then some fantastic artwork of him on the back with a bio for this monkey mutant. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Super 7 Ultimates Monkian. So this guy, again, completes a small team, which on its own is just exciting to, everybody likes to be able to complete a set or to get something finished. And this completes, at the base level anyway, the core mutants. So Jackalman in Wave 1, Slide in Wave 3, and Monkian from Wave 4. Now, of course, Vultureman's coming. Maybe we'll get a Rotaro down the road. I'm assuming we will. But as far as the original group, we've got them, which is really exciting. So it's nice to be able to complete that team. And despite that Slide is usually my favorite when it comes to the mutants, this guy is giving him a run for his money. There's a lot going on with this figure. And one of the key takeaways that I've had so far is that this feels different. Like, the figure feels different. It's hard to convey in a video. Once you get him, you'll understand. But he just feels a little bit different in a very positive way. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. It's going to be kind of what you expect. He is very much a normal style figure when it comes to Ultimates, very much along the lines of Lino, Panthro, Jackalman, but also a little bit different. He feels a little bit smoother. He's also more in line with, say, Jaga, because he's pinless too, so that's kind of nice. So we've got a head that is, unfortunately, I'm sure you can expect, kind of locked down. He's got a big old head of hair, and he's got a beard, so it does get in the way. He can look down slightly, and he sort of just looks straight ahead. You do have a little bit of tilt, not much, and then you do have some rotation. You can kind of get it to go up and over some of that fur, but it is going to pose, no pun intended, a problem. Arms out at the shoulder. Honestly, a lot more than I expected. That fur does not get in the way. It's not like Jackalman's where it's a separate piece. It's a separate piece, but it's not one you take off. Like, it's affixed to the figure. But it doesn't get in the way when you go outwards, and it really doesn't impede him when you go all the way out perpendicular to the figure either. So that's kind of cool. Of course, it goes back. You can't do a full 360 because of the fact that, well, it's there, but he goes up pretty high, I think, so that's all right. We've got our bicep swivel. We've got our single jointed elbow. This is a little bit restricted. It seems like it's a little bit less than 90, and it, of course, also has some rotation there as well. You've got rotation and hinges at those wrists, and then we've got an ab crunch here that goes back slightly, not a lot. It goes backwards slightly, but it goes forward pretty good. And it's really cinched in there. Lino has kind of like a gap in his waist, one of those old holdover from the Mattel era, and his is very seamless. Like, it's very clean, so I do like that. You've got your waist twist, of course. I am going to harp once again, I've said this before. I think I mentioned it in the last review for Turtles, for Wave 4 of Turtles. I'm really hoping that at some point we get to a situation where, since these are made by the Four Horsemen, that they go more Legion-style waists. Big old ball peg would be great to add another layer of articulation, or just to make him a little bit more fluid. This still does work pretty well. Legs go out almost all the way. Like, this is almost the splits, even though he has quite a bit of business going on here. Kick forward pretty good. Again, more stuff getting in the way, but he still kicks out. Backward slightly. There is, of course, thigh cut up there. Single joint, basically 90 degree, and then rotation at the knee. And then we've got hinges and really, really nice rocker down here at these ankles. So he does move. He's basically like any other humanoid ThunderCats Ultimates figure that we've got. Slide is kind of a different figure in many respects, but he's very similar to most. That said, everything on this guy does seem to feel a little bit better. Like, it's just a little bit more quality. Something is ratcheted up a little bit here to make him feel a little bit smoother when it comes to how these joints work. And then, of course, he does have the pinless joints, which just look better. You know, I really am at the point where the joints on Lion-O are pretty unsightly. He's still, you know, one of the top tier figures in the line for me. But seeing this on all of these newer figures, it just makes me want to see that on all of them, old and new. Now, aesthetically, I'm pretty much happy with this guy from top to bottom. Like, there's really not much to gripe about here, save for maybe one little thing, and it's going to be a nitpicky thing that I'm not too sure if it's even worth it or not, but we'll get there. So, this guy's, of course, new parts, new stuff, and again, he's pinless. And it's not the biggest thing in the world, but it's also a very important thing when it comes to just how the figure comes together. He looks a lot more seamless because of that. I mean, again, it's something that really sticks out on the older figures. Those joints are pretty garish, and he is a very different story. He looks, for the most part, like he's just all one piece. There's also a lot of stuff that sort of hides his joints, you know, like these straps. This strap down here hides the knee, stuff like that. And even his torso is incredibly tight. The tolerance on that's got to be pretty close. But I think he looks pretty tremendous. There is a ton of detail all over the body. All of this, everything is basically sculpted as if he was covered in fur because Monkey Man, but I think he looks pretty great. The back in particular really stands out in comparison to the torso, or the chest rather, because of all of this white fur, which is all painted, and it very much matches like the furry shoulders and his big old mane of hair. But what I really like about it is how they implemented all these wraps on him, especially on the leg, and how they're just sort of like, they're on him. They're not going anywhere, but they are also very pliable at the same time. So this one is cinched onto his loincloth, and then it wraps around, missing the joint, so it doesn't hinder the joint at all, and then it latches onto his calf down here just to sort of make it work really nicely without getting in the way of the articulation. So that does look really good. I think all of this is nicely done in terms of the wraps. They're all very consistent in their color. The red on that loincloth is super saturated, and it's a big focal point for the figure. Of course, he's a lot of tans and browns, so this really stands out, really catches your eye. And of course, that big swath of black also is going to sort of draw you, I guess it's going to draw you into his monkey crotch. That doesn't sound right. But in general, this is just a really nice figure, in the same way that Slithe was really well done. I mean, just every detail on that figure was spot on. This guy is more of the same. I'm incredibly happy with the way he turned out. I really like the fact that they went a different route for the fur than they did with, well, of course, it was Mattel's decision on Jackalman, because his does get in the way a little bit. This, however, doesn't seem to. I mean, it does affect the head because it's sitting on it, but this just seems a little bit more secure. It sits nicely, and it seems to be just more part of the figure rather than something that's sitting on the figure, because Jackalman's does look in many ways like it's an extra piece, because of course it's attached to the other pauldron that he has. So it's a fur and it's a pauldron all in one. So he's a little bit different. But I do think they did a really nice job of making this latch onto his torso. I mean, it very much looks quite seamless while also not getting in the way of his articulation too much. It's unavoidable, but it's nicely done here. And overall, I'm just incredibly happy with this body. I think it's really well done in terms of all of this musculature and the hair. I mean, there's like tons and tons of striations and musculature and vascularity in many ways all over this body. He's got some super monkey calves down here too. A lot of detail, just great sculpt all over the place. And really, I mean, ultimately, I say that all the time, no pun intended here, the head sculpt is what's going to do it for you for sure. This huge monkey head with the helmet and all of the silver paint, the mouth open, that snarl, kind of a goofy snarl in many ways. But he looks fantastic. This is a really good sort of non-traditional head sculpt. You know, it's the emotive head sculpt. It's not a stoic one. But I really like this one. It's quite likely going to be the one I use consistently. The mouth is really well done. Those teeth are nicely painted, super bright, and definitely a little bit different than the hair, just to make them stand out and pop against a lot of this sort of creamy off-white color. The one little nitpicky thing that I mentioned is that this is like the strap on the helmet. So this is green. And in the show, a lot of times it's brown. Sometimes it's kind of olively green colorish, something like that. I'm not really sure if it's supposed to be this green. It sort of sticks out to me as like that's not quite right. It's also not super wrong in some instances, but I don't know for sure. So it's kind of one of those things. It's kind of nitpicky, almost not sure it's that that warranted or worth it, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Otherwise, that stupid little thing aside, I think this head sculpt is pretty spot on and probably one of my favorite in the entire line right now. I think they did a tremendous job. Paint is super clean and crisp otherwise, and just another instance of showing that Super 7 does a really solid job with like monster head sculpts and humanoid but not human faces. And then as far as some size comparisons, let's start kind of within the right line. We'll start with ThunderCats Ultimates. So here we go with the Super 7 Lino, and then here, of course, is the Super 7 Slide. So Monkian is, if you don't count Lino's like crazy hair, because of course it adds a little bit of height to him when it's really just hair. He is slightly taller, and I do think that works quite nicely. He's not super tall, but he's a little bit larger. He's not that same standard body. Obviously, it's all new parts. And then, of course, he is quite a bit taller than Slide, but Slide is, well, Slide. He's a lot bulkier, and he's just an entirely different kind of figure. Now let's do another Ultimates. Of course, I've got to go Turtles. So here he is with a turtle. So there he is with Leonardo, and we won't get into which one is or isn't my favorite, because we all know. And then we'll do another turtle, not another turtle, but another Turtles line figure. So here he is with Mutagen Man for another like a beefier size Ultimate figure. So you can see that he's quite a bit wider and girthier in many ways, but of course he's a big pile of goop, so he's a little bit different, but he's about the same height. And then let's do something different. So we'll do a different line entirely, something that's not going to scale at all. So here he is with a Marvel Legends figure. So here he is with the new Ben Reilly Spider-Man on that latest and greatest Hasbro Spider-Man body. And then we'll move Mutagen Man aside, and here he is with the Mezco 112 Collective Conan the Barbarian. So to give you an idea of what he looks like alongside a couple normal 6-inch figures, Conan does run slightly small in many respects, but I think he lines up pretty nicely. You can see just how bulky he is. So he's of course a 7-inch scale figure, but he's also a little bit bigger because he's supposed to be hefty and slightly taller than average when it comes to this line. And then of course when I can, I like to do a comparison between our Super 7 and the vintage counterparts. So here is our LJN figure. And this is, like almost every other time, there's really not a lot to compare to. It's just more of a, here they are next to each other. So Super 7 on the left, obviously, LJN on the right. And they're not too far apart, but they're also not all that similar either. The helmets are different. The fur is a little bit different. The color palette is, of course, very different. And then the straps that he's got are quite a bit different, too. He's got, purple and lavender and red straps all over him instead of just the brown and like the black ones that he's got. So the idea is still very similar. The execution is just quite a bit different. And then as far as accessories goes, Monkian does have a pretty solid spread here. It's kind of what you would expect. Nothing too out of the ordinary, really, but he does have some good stuff. So basically everything he needs. So you've got an extra head sculpt here, and this is basically our normal head sculpt, our stoic head. And I think this looks great. It's very similar, it's just he doesn't have his mouth open. But I think it looks really good. I mean, all the same details are here. Everything's the same except the expression, basically, which is to say that they're still quite a bit different, but I think you get my meaning. So you've got that hair blowing back, you've got the helmet, we've got those eyes, which are just staring you down, and then, of course, his mouth is closed. I do think that one thing that this one has going against it compared to the other one is that his teeth, if you're looking at him dead on, they kind of get lost in the hair. All of that similar color starts to blend together, at least for me. But when you get him from the side, you can kind of check it out right there, and he looks really good. I'm very happy with the way that this one in particular turned out. I still think the other one's my favorite, but that's just a personal thing. Now, he does have some extra hands. In the box, you get laterally hinged gripping hands, and then we get 2 extra sets. So we get a set of vertically hinged hands. Of course, the set is 2, so you get 2 of those. And then we get a set of like style pose, clawed style hands. I'm going to harp on this again because it's something that I just want. I'd like to see some fists in this line. Just like, it took a while to get them in Turtles. I'd like to see them in ThunderCats too. I would give up the vertically hinged hands if I could get a set of fists. I know it's not necessarily the thing, like they don't, have fist fights a lot in the show, but as far as action figures and maybe setting a scene and photography, it would be cool to have some fists. Beyond that, we do get kind of like the the normal stuff that goes with Monkian. So we get a mutant blaster here, and similar to the one that was fixed in the booster pack for Wave 1, this has that sort of like lavender, powdery blue color. It's very cartoony, kind of clashes with him because it's completely matte, but it's cool to get another blaster that goes with the one that I use with Jackalman, for example. So you've got this kind of big old thing. We get his, ball and chain, like the flail type weapon. So this is like his signature thing, at least for me. When I think of him, this is the first thing I think of, although he's got another one that's just as important. So you've got this silver handle with some brown accents. You got a real metal chain. I do wish that there's a way to like easily make this bendy. It makes just posing a lot easier, but I do like this really nicely done. A lot of spikes on that, so that's pretty cool. Sized really well, fits in his hands quite nicely. And then the last thing we get is his cannon shield, because it makes perfect sense that he's shooting like, big balls out of the mouth of this shield that has his own head on it, because he's super vain, I guess. But this thing looks fantastic. I'm really happy with this. So brown with black, and then the gold Monkian head sculpt on the front, which really stands out. This might be my favorite accessory that he comes with, just because it's so weird. And of course, that gold is very striking compared to everything else he comes with. So he's got a pretty solid spread. It's not tons and tons, but when I think about it, this is kind of everything I would really want to have with him. Specifically, it comes down to these two things. Like, this is what I'm going to display him with probably 9 times out of 10. So he's got a bunch of good stuff, and he's got a really solid extra head sculpt. So yeah, if everything else in this wave is as good as Monkian, I think we're going to have probably the best wave so far on our hands. I know that's not necessarily a hard task because we've only got Wave 1 and part of Wave 3, but Wave 3 was pretty solid, and I'm really thinking that this one's going to give it a run for its money. Monkian in particular, though, is incredibly well done. I'm very happy with the way he moves, how seamless he looks, and again, there's something about this figure that just feels different, feels better. He also looks great. I mean, he looks like he jumped right out of the show, and he comes with a solid array of accessories. I really like that initial head sculpt that he comes with, but it's nice to get both. He has like all of his signature weapons, and we've got a decent array of hands. I still want some fists in this line, but he's got a good bunch of hands to be emotive and expressive. So this is definitely a high point for the Mutants. I'm really happy with this one. He's given Sly the run for his money when it comes to best mutant figure we've gotten so far. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 ThunderCats Ultimates Monkian. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.